All right, Ed Dean, and back with us as always, a guy who's been with me many times. Florida Daily show, radio show here, and everything else, and he's there. Matt
We used to
O'Hearn,
cover elections way back in the day.
yeah, oh yeah, we covered all this stuff, man, out of Brevard County, and New South Politics. He's the editor. So I want to talk about Area 51 election conspiracies. Let me give you the Knowles colors here. Let me give you a little bit of a premise. The Supreme Court recently, what was it, last week? No, just recently. What am I saying? They've been coming out with a bunch of decisions last week, the week before, this week, and everything else. Came out and said about the elections. Although a lot of conservatives have beaten the crap out of Amy Coney Barrett, who I like, and Justice Roberts. I mean, he's okay. But this had to do with election laws. Let me give you the backdrop. Mississippi allows the ballots that come in that are postmarked before or on election day, which is still legal, by the way. Now, personally, I like to see people do it way ahead of schedule, but it's like the IRS. If you do it that night, 11:59 on the day it's supposed to, April 15th, it's supposed to go up, they still count it as being on time. If you're an hour late or whatever, they'll penalize you. So the state of Mississippi says, hey, if you send in your ballots, but it's postmarked, and this is not the voter's fault, this is the post office's fault. So it's either on election day, it's postmarked, and it comes in after the election, but like the day after. Mississippi says you have up to 5 days. So Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts went along with the other liberals of the court by saying that is okay. And that pissed off a bunch of conservatives. Here's the clip.
The court also upheld a Mississippi law that allows the state to continue counting mail-in ballots after Election Day. Justice Barrett writing of federal law, the Election Day statutes say nothing about ballot receipt, and we cannot add to the words Congress chose. That decision, which will affect similar laws in more than half the states for the upcoming midterm elections.
You know what? All right, let me stop right there. That was Fox News legal analyst Shannon Bream. So I want you guys to follow me, because if you take the politics, what Amy Coney Barrett legally did what was right. The Supreme Court cannot make law. They've done that before, like Roe versus Wade. They're not supposed to make law, Matt. All she said was that the Congress has to get involved. I am not a fan of a week to 2 weeks of counting the ballots. We do that with military and overseas absentee. By the way, folks, absentee ballot is a mail-in ballot. I don't care how you spin it. Trump did it. I've done it. We've all done it. Okay. I like voting election day. I just don't like it when we just blanket it, send it to everybody. I'm not a fan of that. I think you should request it. But what Amy Coney Barrett says, it's not us to add to it. All they said was that the Congress, which is exactly correct, it's like all these executive orders, the Congress is not codify. And I like some of the executive orders by Trump on many of them, the environmental purposes and things like that. They got to make it law, because when the Democrats come in, they're going to undo it. What she said was, and everybody's all pissed off about it. No, she says Congress has got to do something about it. We cannot make law. Now, here's the big question, Matt. My father used to say, like, when I pay my bills, when I get the bill for my power bill, I usually pay it within a day. I get 3 weeks to pay it. Because my internet. Mm-hmm. I usually pay it or pay most of it that day. It's just because I always keep a balance on there. But I don't wait to the day of. And my dad used to say, get things done early. Car registration, don't wait to the day of when you're 16. Get it done a month before or whatever, so you're not waiting in line or whatever. He was exactly correct. I believe that most voters that want to do a mail-in ballot do not wait to the last day. I understand if you're out of town, if you're whatever circumstances, but the bottom line is you need to send it in early. So my recommendation is for a lot of my conservatives out there that think voter fraud exists on a Dominion voting machine, thousands, and Spencer Pratt lost or whatever because of all this crap, then I believe that we should have a date. If it's not going to be allowed to be postmarked, which is the law in many states, the day of election, and that's not the voter's fault. That is the post office. Then we need to sit back and say, okay, it needs to be done that Saturday before the voting Tuesday, not the day of. You get what I'm saying, Matt? So it's allowed to be postmarked the day before or the day of. That's considered to be counted. And by the way, look what Mississippi's doing. Folks, Mississippi went 22 points for Trump in 2024. I don't think we got a voting problem going on.
And as you're saying this, I realize the irony of Trump voters talking about all this, wanting more control from either the federal level and or executives and all that. And the problem with that is eventually your party's not in power. And the thing about having states and counties administer the process is it actually allows for greater accountability.
I agree.
Because when you have multiple levels, there's multiple things you can check. You remember when Brenda Snipes down in Broward
Oh,
was
she was one
ultimately
of the
fired
worst.
because we all
Yeah.
knew what the county standard was for rerunning those ballots to double check on the runoffs, and she was taking much longer than we could tell mathematically. Right? Why did we know that? Because there was a county we could look specifically into, and if Republicans if they aren't concerned about, if they don't stop and consider what could happen if they were to get their wish, right, of basically Feds say this, everything else applies, that could come back to haunt them when they're not in control and you have just blanket authority shutting
There
down
was a lot of creepiness she was doing down there. And but here's the thing I want to ask my Republicans. You got to stop the complaining. Well, if we don't win an election, it must be cheating. Because now you're out, because you're going to, if David Jolly loses this election here in Florida, he has every right to go, well, I think there's too much cheating going on. And then somebody's going to say, but there are a million more Republicans, got to include independents. There are a million more Republicans than Democrats. Exactly. In many of these states, there are more Democrats than Republicans. And that's one of the reasons why Republicans aren't winning. It's not, Republicans are not winning for the most part, certain areas of California. It's not voting fraud. But this is what I'm getting at. I wanted to see the decision, at least to sit back and say Congress needs to put or states a much better deadline. None of this 2 weeks out, but we do it for the military, and I get that. In a time of war, sometimes, whatever, they're serving in areas they can't tell you where they're at. Yes, they need to be given a little leeway, and I have no problem with that.
Because once you get past, I think, 48 hours after an election, everyone's tired and fatigued, and they want to know what was the count. You already, like in Florida, we know that the counties have it on file. They have the tabulation of all the mail-ins that have reached them up to Election Day, with the exception of those that still have to trickle in, but the vast majority are already ready to be published.
But we got a few minutes here. Here's my question. If my side and some of the Area 51, think that Dominion switched all the voting, without a computer module.
Crowd.
Yeah. My question is when does the fraud take place? Well, Ed, the fraud takes place after Election Day. Well, wait a second. Would you not want to do it before election? I mean, you can't have it all the way you want it. If you're going to cover it up, would you not do it before Election Day and not be so obvious? I'm saying if this is going to happen. They're all, to this day, they're like, well, look at all the ballots in 2020. How was Trump up and then Biden coming to win the next morning? It was because they counted the absentees later. May I tell you, if you look at the results of 2024, the same thing happened in Trump's favor. Later on that evening, his numbers surged as well. How do you answer that?
Right.
And by the way, can I also say this? You don't need the SAVE Act to win elections. I support the SAVE Act, by the way. Conservatives won in 2024 with Trump. You didn't have the SAVE Act back then. And I don't want to hear excuses if Republicans lose this year. Oh, it was voter fraud. What?
No, you got to look in the mirror and see, where did we go wrong? Why are people angry? What can we change to make sure that
how many days? Okay, I got a minute and a half here. What should be the cutoff for voting? The day of election, postmarked, or do we need to do it days earlier?
I think if it's postmarked, and part of the problem is lazy mailmen sometimes, but I think
that's right.
They should allow for, if you've postmarked it in time, there's a 48-hour window for it to get back so 48 hours after Election Day. The only problem with that is, as we both know, USPS in some areas is much slower. So then you're always going to have debate, because then the debate's going to become, well, were there postal workers who didn't get that back to the distribution center in time? There's always going to be something.
Or the argument that Republicans, understandably so, and I get it, are going after the Postal Service because they're now still they're broke. So they're taking it out on Republicans. I'm like, guys, that's like I'm yelling at somebody, I'm going to kill them the same night, or it looks bad on me. No, y'all watching too many movies. Does voter fraud happen? Yes. To the area that some people believe it happens, no proof. After 6 years, even the people that Trump hired came back and said we couldn't find any evidence. Does it exist? Yes, but not to the wide scale that everybody believes it is. So.
And by the way, it does happen on both sides.
Yeah, it does happen on both sides. Hey, Republicans used to ballot harvest as well, and it's happened. So, all right, Matt O'Hearn, NewSouthPolitics.com.
Thanks for having me on.
There was a lot of good analysis, and I always enjoy having him come on with us and every day right here Ahmed Dean.